I'm starting.
Okay, Billy, did you read the title or did you want me to?
I have. It takes a second. I'm still getting YouTube and Facebook. They require interaction, so I can't do it all simultaneously.
No, I was saying, do you want me to introduce Ylva?
Yes.
Okay.
Good. Let's just make sure that. Just realize I'm yellow on yellow. It's okay. It's light yellow.
Yes.
Mustard.
Facebook is.
No, and it gives the contrast.
And your mauve looks good against gray and green, I think.
That's good.
Pink normally looks, pink and shades look very good against gray.
Yeah,
Very nice.
I like that
Mm-hmm.
contrast. You know that the cameras take green, see-through green. And I of course didn't know that. And sure enough, I wore a green dress to an interview.
So you were dressed like the green screen?
Yeah.
Can you look like the universe?
So he had to lend me his jacket, otherwise people would have seen through my dress.
Oh, it can see through?
Yes.
Well, not like to your body. It
No,
seems
but-
like it shows like you look like everything everywhere all at once.
I see.
Well, why
Okay.
don't you introduce our guest
Yes,
this morning?
yes.
Okay.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome,
morning.
yes, to our next
morning.
episode. Yes, well, to Floridian. Today we have Ylva Rouse, who is the senior curator of MOCA Jacksonville. MOCA stands for Museum of Contemporary Art.
She selects the art that we get to
Thank
see
you,
at
thank
MOCA.
you.
Yes, thank you for finding time to come in your pretty busy schedule. We know because MOCA just turned 100 years old, but we'll talk a lot about that. Just
Yeah.
wanted to express our gratitude.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you. Let's start with what do you think about?
let's start with the beginning.
Yeah, let's start with the beginning. What brought you to Jacksonville, and where did you come from?
So I came to MOCA Jacksonville, or to Jacksonville, from New Orleans, where I had been living a long time, 15 years or so. Had arrived there to set up a festival following the Hurricane Katrina, to help the city recover, and also the artists in the city recover.
So it was already art focused. It was not just rebuilding houses.
It was actually art focused, because what we realized was that the art sector wanted to help, but didn't know how to, and how to direct their funds or to direct their attention. So it was the idea of Dan Cameron, a curator, old friend of mine that I knew from Madrid, Spain.
And that's the actual beginning.
That's the beginning. Yes, of this second U.S. sojourn that I've had in my life.
Okay, all right.
So, but you didn't. So you're originally from Sweden.
Yes, my mother's Swedish, but my father was from New Orleans.
Okay, but you were born in.
New Orleans.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought you were born in Sweden. Okay, so
We were in the States, in New Orleans, but they left for Europe when I was very young.
okay now
They went to
that's right.
England, but then they went to Spain. My father was he was a systems analyst, but he always wanted to be a classical guitarist. So they went to Spain one summer and fell in love with it, and that's how we ended up growing up there mostly.
And I imagine you are absolutely thankful for that. Right?
Well, it's a wonderful way of growing up, between Sweden and Spain. Lovely combination.
Okay, can we kind of pause on because I want to go back to that New Orleans situation that brought you
Yes.
there, the project. For you, do you have, where's the sense of home for you in
It's
this
hard-
world?
It's hard to say these days. I mean, my soul's home is Sweden. So when I get to Sweden, I'm like,
The whole country or a specific city?
specific place, not city, Stormbo it's called. And it's the area where my mother grew up, what my family is from, actually. Yeah.
Do you still have a lot of family there?
Not a lot, cousins and such, since, the typical thing, when my grandmother passed away, the family kind of spreads. But we're trying, the new generations, yeah.
I hear it's the happiest place on earth. Every time they do those metrics, Sweden is always rated.
Is it Sweden or Norway?
They both are up there in all those metrics.
Yeah, and in general, the Nordic countries, yeah, are. But of course, it has to do with how societies defined there. It's not like here where, the modern idea of Sweden is that society and the government is at the service of to help citizens.
Mm-hmm.
It's very foreign to the American idea, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it may have started with that intention.
So you think that this concept from governance plays out all the way through society, that it has a massive impact then as it trickles down?
It does have an incredible impact, because it lays the foundation for the idea that society is us all together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, Sweden, like the rest of the world, has changed so much. But the fundamental idea is still there. Even though, it's global like anywhere else these days.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
There's not so much difference. I mean, you must have grown up the same way. There were two TV channels and they were both state channels.
Mm-hmm.
So...
yeah, that's true.
Very different to what it is now.
It is, yeah.
Do you find that spirit is something that you're able to apply as well when in your work in MOCA? Because it's something similar. I think you're working with large entities, huge government-related organizations, and affecting culture here in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think the most fundamental is that as a result of how society is viewed, one of the fundamental ways of relating to other people and to issues is to find common ground.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that has been really a fundamental basis for me throughout life. Yeah.
And you feel like art could be that platform, that
Yes.
mediation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because really, it connects to what we talked before we came online.
We're never going to share. We might come back to that point.
But definitely, for me, art has always been a gateway into, if you want to call it spirituality, to our understanding of what being means.
Mm-hmm.
It's the inquiry into the fundamental question, really, of what are we, who are we, why are we here?
Mm-hmm.
No?
So so we dove like straight deep into the ocean. I like it. We're still going to go back to New Orleans.
Yes.
So do you feel that, is art for you, because you use the word understanding versus, let's say, knowing, realizing, or feeling. So is it more for you art still is more of a process of a thought, and maybe then digested on a level and assimilated rather on a level of feeling?
Okay.
How do you consume art?
That's a really good question, what you caught there. Well, I said understanding of being. So, of course, the human sensibility is what's at play. So, it has to do with catharsis.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's the understanding through the involvement of your sensibility, no? And that's what art can do. That's why it's so important. Because this hyper-rational society that we live in fundamentally is not connected to how we experience life. And art is one of the few areas, of course, like all that you do, that allows us to at least get a sense of, yes, this is what it is to be human. No?
Well, it's such a big area that I think it's actually a component in everything. Some aspect of everything we do and everything that we function to do is art, hence the term artisanal, whenever you focus on doing anything to an exceptional level.
Yeah, or creativity. And it's incredible that you still have to fight for that idea that creativity is so important and art is so important from a very early age.
Can robots be creative?
All right, let's get into the hard problem of consciousness. Well, we'll find out.
Yeah.
I don't think they are yet. I gotta say, what I see so far is very fascinating, but I wouldn't call it creative. It requires a creative person to use it, much like a paintbrush. So a paintbrush is not creative, but the painter is.
Yeah, and of course, we think of creativity as the leap that human consciousness is capable of outside of the structure, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what does still differentiate us from AI or human or machines.
Yeah, and actually what you just said, and as we were talking about, I was thinking it's almost as if making art or contemplating art, interacting with art requires slowing down and that coming out of your structure, like you said, right? Like out of your box. Like you and this is where we kind of enter that space of timelessness where we can maybe touch onto those questions, why I'm here, what I am, and
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
when robots create art, they'll also wonder why they're here.
Hold on a second. Why did I make this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, look at us and get at least mad a little bit.
Yeah.
Much like children do at their parents when they, at some point, come to a point of consciousness and often go, why did you make me exactly?
Well, that's why Blade Runner, when it came out, was a kind of cult movie for us all in the arts, because it does touch on that.
Yes, yeah, and now there is so much more, so many more movies that are coming out, and I think with the most recent that was to me maybe most moving was the Creator.
Oh, that was beautiful. Did you see this?
Have you seen that?
Yes,
it was pretty. Yeah, it was, and of course it's like an idea, right? We don't know whether artificial intelligence will ever be at that level. But anyway, can we go back to New Orleans?
Yes.
Let's go back to New Orleans.
But actually, can we go back a little bit earlier? So, did you study art?
Yes, but it wasn't my main area, actually. I began with music. I began very early, with a piano, and it turned out I had natural talent. I was a bit of a wunderkind. So my mother put me with a private teacher who turned out to be Cuban. She was a Cuban refugee in Madrid, So she was trained in the Soviet tradition.
Okay, what does it mean?
it's
A lot of smacking.
well, I don't know where that came from,
I'm just kidding.
but it's kind of related because it does become a little more percussive. But no, there's a Soviet tradition and a French tradition, which is more common, and I can get into it, but very briefly. So the French method is simply touching the keys, but the Soviet tradition, what it does is you have the tension in the hand, and then hitting the key releases the tension. So the arm is weightless. It is curious, very curious. And of course, the great pianists in both traditions,
That's
obviously.
so cool.
For example, I don't know, Keith Jarrett, that was one of my heroes when I was growing up, was also trained in the Soviet tradition.
Oh,
Isn't that
fascinating.
interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I studied piano, and I never knew that. I have never knew there was a separate about the Soviet tradition of playing.
Different methods.
I understand what you're saying, but I've never even tried to play that way.
I've thought about it lately. I guess that's why it came up, because these Cuban pianists that are coming out now, particularly in jazz, that are brilliant, and I think it must have to do with that particular method that gives them that percussive style that is so good.
Yeah, I just wonder in terms of, because it's a very different energy that creates the sound, right? One is the energy of release, and the other is kind of more, the Soviet will be, and the other would be, yes, more, almost more aggressive.
Yes, because they're involving the whole. It depends on. It's just where it comes from. But yeah. So anyway, so when I went to study, I went through the conservatory and then went to study in New York with a music scholarship.
Oh wow, from Madrid.
Yeah, from Madrid. But I had always had both music and art in my life, and it surrounded my family in Madrid, and then I arrived in New York, and all my cousins were studying art. So the one was at SVA, the other one was at Pratt, and so on. So here I was in the classical music, and it was such a closed world. I mean, we did have exciting people exploring, I don't know, like Holger Tokay and David Van Tighem and Philip Glass, and the whole ECM label that was trying to break down the barriers between classical, new music, jazz. But to me, everything that they were dealing with in the visual arts world was so exciting. I mean, they were talking about entropy and thermodynamics, and it took me to quantum mechanics and the fourth dimension and reading Ouspensky, and so on and so forth. It had much more to do with what I was looking for, because I already had clear that I didn't want to become a
pianist,
a professional, musician. But I just still wanted to explore what that was, what it meant to be, have that creativity, and I couldn't understand why society was so foreign to it. So I was interested in exploring that.
I often wonder if it's not because much of society feels the necessity of engineers on some level, and artistry is almost the opposite of engineering. Of all that which we do, we either know why we were going to do it beforehand or we don't. And that which we don't know why we're doing it beforehand is art. And that which we know why we're doing it before we start is engineering. And society seems to have a necessity for engineers and feel there's no necessity for art because it's not visceral. They don't feel it immediately, and they don't see it with the same sense. But there is a deeper sense that without art, there's nothing worth engineering.
I think it has changed, though, a lot.
Yeah.
since the 80s, which was when I
Yeah.
was there. It's changed a lot. We have, and you know, the same way that you spoke of religion earlier, the same way that science and religion, we're getting closer and closer, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like was conceptual art. Conceptual art, just by definition, it's kind of preconceived. You go with a very clear message in creating a conceptual art piece. So in a way, in your comparison, it's very similar to engineering.
I believe there's always an aspect of one and the other. It's quite a yin yang.
Yeah, and that's part of it. No, it's the Apollonian versus the Dionysian. It's Aristotle versus Plato, and so on and so forth. And the Western world has always had those opposites, and much more so than, for example, the Eastern world that doesn't even contemplate that opposition. So in that sense, we are, I hope, evolving toward a more holistic understanding of
I think it's great
reality.
the way you facilitated that conversation and the way you have been able to do it so effectively. I think the mechanisms of production are often just as transparent as the product that they create, but the effect of art is so ephemeral that it's difficult to carve out either a career or an impactful life, and you've managed to do both. And I think that's impressive, and it shows your understanding of its effect in society and your relationship with it.
Thank you, yeah.
Which brings us back to New Orleans.
Which brings us back to New Orleans.
You can't escape New Orleans.
It was an incredible experience, incredible opportunity. So what we called the biennial, because it was called a biennial, even though we didn't know if their goal was going to be a second one.
Yeah.
You know, Prospect New Orleans, we called it Prospect New Orleans. And the first one was 81 artists from all over the world. And what we said to them was, you have the whole city to place your art. And of course, and one of the most important things that for me was to bring them there before the exhibition, so that they could experience New Orleans and base the work that they made or brought on their experience. And of course, when they first arrived, they all wanted to do work based on Katrina. But slowly they would get into the magic, because New Orleans is really a magical city, even in such terrible circumstances. And they would get hold of something else that they wanted to express in their work.
How long was it going on for, Prospect Biennale?
So the exhibition, it's turned into a triennial now, but the exhibition was from October through February.
Oh, pretty extended time.
Yes, because it's such a huge effort.
Yeah, it's a pretty serious undertaking.
Yeah, and we thought we would do Prospect 1, and then that was it. I was going to go back to Europe, but it was such an incredible experience for so many people, and it got so much attention that we said, okay, let's do Prospect 2. And until today, Prospect 6 happens. I left with Prospect 4, Prospect 4.
And so the Prospect 6 is going on now?
2 to 3 years. So
We'll go on in October. We'll come
October
on,
to
yes, this
February.
October. Yeah.
Every 3 years now.
every 3 years now.
Yeah.
In the beginning, every 2.
Yeah.
I was just saying, so you ran that for over 8 years.
Yeah.
That's quite a run.
That is quite a run.
And it's basically straight from university to run this massive international project.
No. No. There were lots of Mandarin in between. Yeah. I went, after finishing in New York, I actually went back to Europe and went home. I was on my way to Berlin, but ended up staying in Madrid, and eventually working at the National Museum there, at the Reina Sofia.
Oh.
Yeah, the Contemporary Art Museum there.
What did deter you from Berlin?
Family.
Oh, okay. So.
Yeah. I was still thinking that I was going to work in music, even though I had started working with art a lot then. So I wanted to go to Berlin to study with this composer from the Baltic countries, but he was in Berlin, Arvo Pärt, who was is a wonderful classical musician. Yeah.
How interesting.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, you went to Berlin to study fashion.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then ended up here.
So here we are.
Yes.
The gravity of Florida.
So the way I came from New Orleans here was that, as often happens, I started at Prospect working with the artists as curatorial and overseeing directly working with the artists. And by Prospect 4, I was interim director. And I was getting further and further away from actually working day to day with the artists.
Oh, yeah, and more administration. And,
Yeah. It often happens. So when I was thinking of, okay, it's time for Prospect to get new blood in, then I asked myself, okay, what do you want to do? I said, I want to go back and work with artists. So I started looking for curatorial positions. And of course, New Orleans is relatively small, so it was hard to stay there.
Right. So was it a hard departure for you?
Very.
Had you been to Jacksonville before that?
No. I had no idea. I had been to St. Augustine, driving down to Miami. I had taken trips to Miami, and of course wanted to see St. Augustine since it was the first Spanish
settlement. And you came to Jacksonville just before the pandemic started, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it was a harsh landing too, I imagine.
It really was. Oof.
Interesting. It's a good point, and I would feel similarly. I often wonder, because I'm from this exact area, so I don't know what it feels like to come to here. But it's interesting that one of my technicians, I always wanted to get out of here. So I know what it feels like to want to leave. And now I love it here more than anywhere else. So, but my technician that I was interviewing said to me that he was glad that he's in his favorite city now being here. And I said, you're from New Orleans. I said, you're from my favorite city. Because New Orleans has always been my favorite city to go to. I love food and music and whatnot. And he said, but a lot of things there that I loved, they're not becoming new anymore. He said, there's new things. He says, I'm not saying there's not a lot of new things going on in New Orleans. He said, but it's not increasing from what it was. He said, it was cooler than it is. And he said, but Jacksonville is getting cooler than it was. So I'd rather move here and build something here. He said, because there's a lot of very interesting things. And I was like, now that after he said that, I had to admit to myself that I actually felt similar. I've just for so long felt like I wanted to leave Jacksonville and do something somewhere else, that had never really dawned on me that it's really become an it place because of the things people have brought. Because
I felt that too. I mean, and it did absolutely play a role in my decision. When I came to do the in-person interview, I felt that you could feel that there was change. And of course, you talk to all Jacksonvillians like you, they say, yeah, we felt that before, nothing has happened. But it did feel, there were new people, new directors at the Arts Council, at Downtown Vision. There really was a sense that there was an opportunity, and Kathleen, my director at MOCA as well, Dorothy. So, and I think in these past 4 years that I've been now, almost 5 now, we've seen it. No, don't you think?
That's right. The change
it's always terribly slow. But
for me, it's fast now because I waited for it for decades in my youth. And I remember driving around the streets of Jacksonville going, why is nothing happening?
Yeah.
Like, I just want to go to something and meet people and see, I'm a young person looking for something to do. And that was why I wanted to go. And now, every time I turn around, there's so many things going on. If you say there's nothing to do, then you're just not looking, because there's multiple events every day in the city. And MOCA has also come a long way. The relationships, the partnerships, the partnership with UNF, the atrium space that you guys created over there, it's really progressed from what it was when I was young.
Absolutely. And of course, it's a change that has been happening everywhere, in the sense of how a museum relates to the communities that it's in.
That's right. It's also much more approachable.
Yeah.
Much more approachable. In my youth, it felt like a place, where you'd see art by people that weren't alive, and it's a modern art museum.
Contemporary art.
Sorry, contemporary art. That's right, contemporary art. So it's a contemporary art museum. So it's beautiful that there's, I feel like a much more vibrant, not only exhibitions, but engagement with the public and events going on surrounding it.
But speaking of contemporary versus modern, don't you have quite a few modern art pieces, or it's all contemporary period?
It's all contemporary, but of course it's a fluid.
Yeah.
It's a fluid border there, so to speak. So how we define it in our collection is work from the 1960s onwards to our time. Yeah. So generally we count, modernism as the first half of the 20th century.
Right. Yeah. So when you were talking about prospect, it almost feels the concept of atrium at MOCA is like a very small scale of the prospect concept.
That's very perceptive of you. Yes, that's exactly right. Because for a curator, it's such an incredible opportunity, because it's the closest you get to the creative process. You work so closely with the artists, particularly in the atrium, because it's such a unique space.
And yeah.
The proportions, the 40 by 40 by 40 feet, that it takes.
It's very tall.
Yes.
If you haven't seen it, definitely go to MOCA and check out the atrium space. There's always unique art there.
Yeah. And it takes the artists outside of their comfort zones. They can't do what they always do. So it's also a gamble,
For you?
Yes.
I've never seen that. I've never seen that gamble not pay off. Every single opening has been really amazing.
So how do you select artists? I know that when they started Atrium, well, I know, as I understand, because I think it kind of related to my beginning here.
Yeah.
In terms of chronology, it was highlighting local artists.
Yes.
And then it shifted to American artists, and I think now you have pretty consistently international artists featured in the Atrium project as well.
We try to alternate, which is what I do overall in our programming. So it's international, it's national, and local. So, yeah, so we've had the last one was, of course, Hiromi's wonderful piece.
Oh, what a beautiful
Hiromi
exhibition.
Monahan. Yeah.
I really love her work.
Yes.
That in the atrium space was so impressive.
Yeah, and her case is a fantastic example of when the atrium works best, because it's when you help an artist to take the next step.
Mm-hmm.
It was the same with Kedgar, right? To push them into a broader vision of their practice, and that's so exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I imagine it could be so scary for them.
Yes,
As much as for you,
it is.
to take that risk, so to say, or that leap of faith. But for them,
Yes.
She
a leap of
has so
faith.
much faith that risk went in quotes for Alexandra. She's like, I see no risk. They're just amazing exhibitions.
well, I just feel like risk already has like a bit of a negative. Yeah,
It's not a
negative
good.
taste,
It's
so,
not a
like,
good
I don't like.
word.
We trust you
but
have it well calculated.
it is definitely a leap of faith, but that's what also makes it exciting.
The artists that I know who've been featured in the atrium space have all really worked diligently to create something in that space. And I know that every single one of them has found it a rewarding and challenging experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so I understand what you mean about this moment where you've got an opening coming and you need to have a piece ready that's never been done before. And that is, that is like the things you see on TV, like the chefs' TV shows and everything where everybody's going, we got to get this done.
Yeah. But yeah, no, and all artists respond, well, I shouldn't say all, but you're right. I mean, so you mentioned that this year is our 100-year anniversary, which is incredibly exciting. So for this year, normally I program 3 project atriums a year, but this year we thought, well, why not do one that looks to the past, to MOCA's past, and then a second one to look into the future. So then not obvious, but one of the definite candidates was Frank Stella. Not only because he's had a very close relationship with MOCA and with Jacksonville in general, but also because he's an artist that has always looked forward, always interested in the latest technologies. He was the first one to use computers and 3D and to create his work. And even he, at this stage of his career, as we were planning the work that was going, it evolved. So that the space again was creating something new for him. So, for example, you'll see tomorrow, but
Yes, I'm excited.
it's 2 stars, and originally they were one on top of the other, but then he couldn't help himself. He gave the second star a slight tilt, which meant that we had to create a base so it wouldn't fall over.
I like how you said he couldn't help himself.
He had to do something.
So
Yeah.
is he the one who is connecting with the past?
Yes.
Okay, even though he has so many vectors into the future in terms of the media he uses in his work.
Yeah, but of course he's an older artist. So
Is it a secret who's the future linking?
not at all. So the future will be represented. I don't know how you would like that, but this Mexican artist Rafael Lozano Hemmer, who's based in Toronto, and he does these incredible, immersive, high tech installations.
Okay.
And
I'm excited.
wow,
Can't
so
wait to see
Atrium
that.
is gonna transform even more to do that.
Yes.
It feels like not just the atrium, but even like the areas near
Yes.
atrium will have to transform as well. I think to me, atrium, and that would be my next question for you after I finish my impression. It's such a unique place because it's not the place that hosts the art. It's actually the place that merges with the art in a way, and it always transforms. I know how you guys paint walls, do additional things. It's to me like maybe it almost feels like the museums at this day and age should be moving, whether even if it's a classic or not a contemporary part of the art history collection, move to that more breathing, more alive space. That's why I also like SCAD in Savannah, because their museum is also very shift form, kind of form shift. Yeah, form shift. How to say it in English? Form shift, shift form. Transformable.
Yeah, that
It's
one I know.
transformable.
Yeah.
Isn't there a word? Form shift? Form shifter? No? Or shift?
Shapeshifter?
Shapeshifter. There you go.
I can say it.
Every
I
episode
didn't
we
think of
have.
it in a correlation to a house or anything. I thought you like a
I know.
creature or something.
Well, this is what it makes a creature. It makes it alive.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Yeah.
But every episode we have, there's some linguistic like revelation for me, or I learn something new, some idiomatic expression. So
Well, I like that we have shapeshifter this one.
okay, and I forgot my next question. Oh,
Atrium.
uniqueness of atrium. Are there other museums across the country that have a similar concept for their temporary exhibitions?
It's pretty unique.
That's the feeling I have.
It's pretty unique in that sense. That it's indoors, that it's a staple.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like the opposite of what a lot of museums feel like is they seem like the back rooms. I don't know if you know about this like horror phenomenon on like on YouTube or whatnot, where they film these creepy environments called the back rooms, and they're always these massive open spaces, and they're huge, and they create a sense of uneasiness in the architecture and how it's like laid out, because the rooms are always either a little too small on one side and too big on the other, and they're like they create these odd effects. Anyways, I don't want to get too deep into backrooms. The point is, a lot of museums, to me, they don't feel that they correspond to the art. They don't feel that the building corresponds to the art, especially if that art is contemporary, not modern.
I mean, of course, I don't know. But the Hirshhorn, for example, in Washington has an incredible lobby that they invite artists to do incredible
DC,
installations.
New York, they have,
So there are those kind of spaces,
that's right.
Form
but nothing
shifters.
like the form shifters.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love the museums.
But nothing like the atrium.
That's right.
Yeah, MOCA atrium.
So can we talk actually? I want to go back to the 100th anniversary.
Yeah.
But your feeling, or maybe wish or understanding, vision is the word, to how the art, contemporary or not, maybe should be or will be better presented for a contemporary consumer. Like, speaking about not the art itself, but the space that hosts the art, museums and galleries.
You're talking about how she conceptually takes the art off the wall and how it kind of breaks his.
No. How, like, hanging on the wall is the most, known, or if it's a sculpture, of course, it's a
Pedestal.
pedestal, and preferably not against the wall. But have you ever thought, or do you have maybe a dream of how you think like the art should be
Do you have a dream museum?
Presented now.
Yeah, to make the, because just to finish why I'm asking, with everything, with the technology, it feels like the span of attention is so short. And I think I spoke maybe to Kathleen or the curator before, the art director. Yes, her. That they did this study and it's seconds.
Yes.
How many seconds every person stops in front of a piece?
Yeah.
If they stop. And it's seconds. We're not even talking about breaths. It's just literally seconds.
Yeah.
So how can we? And there is a reason I myself often just walk, and because sometimes you just get so
I think it's
overwhelmed.
normal. Other than pieces that I have a particular impact on, I would say I peruse art as well, stopping by a couple seconds at each piece until something hits me. Then
But I
I'm
wonder sometimes if it's somehow also related to the way it is presented, because also. I'm just imagining ergonomically, right? Or I'm walking, so I have to turn my head to see it, right? And if I stop, I have to actually stop. It requires, and then turn the whole body. I'm just thinking about those things that would maybe are not
Absolutely.
aware of,
Yeah.
that require that effort.
If you were recreating
And if
it,
you are going through hundreds of pieces, let's say you go to Hermitage or even any museum in DC, you can't see everything and really connect with every piece. That's why, like, my rule for many years has been like, if I just find one,
Yes.
I'm done. After that, I'm not going to even continue. Like, that made my visit.
Yeah. Also, because it's not only the attention span; it's that your brain can take.
Yes,
So much
you feel
in.
so saturated. Yeah, and
instead of impact of a piece, it just is a trip of seeing pieces.
absolutely, because that's the
Yeah.
only reason. It's not to like, okay, click, check. I saw all the pieces, but there's nothing left.
I mean, as a curator, what you think of, or I think of, is to create a path that takes you through, and by creating that path, you try to simulate stations.
Do you think
In
that's
some way.
Do you think that
I call them stations in the sense that they make you stop.
Pause. Okay.
And
Oh, I'm so excited for the visit tomorrow with you. I'm gonna looking for those stations.
well, it's a good one to look at and to answer your question with, because so this is our other big exhibition of the year based on our collection, which is a walk on the wild side. Yeah, and it's multimedia. I don't want to get into it because there's so much there. But in terms of your question, the fact that it is multimedia, and most contemporary art is multimedia today, that allows you to create these stations to grab people's attention.
would you change things about the format? Do you have like a dream format that you would create now if if money was no object and you could just make your ultimate
Yes, I can definitely tell you. I had my dream about this exhibition, for example, that of course budgets are always an issue, but mostly well, of course, about the pieces that you can bring, but also technology. I'm dreaming of the moment when we can introduce.
what do you think about the virtual reality exhibitions being ported into VR?
Yeah, I think anything that will deepen your experience is good.
I like the accessibility of it as virtual reality becomes increasingly capable and less clunky. I think I think it'll become an increasing way that people engage with art.
I mean, there's a space for everything. There's a fundamental contradiction between VR and the experience of a painting that is created. It's trying to bring you in. We talk about paintings as being windows. So it's starting. But even if they're not windows, even if they are abstract, like with Stella, what you see is what you see, flat. There's the physicality of it. There's the physicality of the painting, the physicality of you standing in the space with that object and becoming aware of how that is shifting your sense of space. All of that you annul if you're bringing in VR, or unless you're creating it specifically for VR, right?
Right. I think I agree with that.
So there's space for everything.
No, without a doubt, I definitely would not ever want a world where one replaced the other. I feel like they each have.
I'm glad you're not going to
benefits.
allow that.
And that has been true of all. I lived when video came into art. Well, not quite the beginnings, but when video was starting to become a separate media by itself. So I lived how the transition between it being, you were looking at it where the technology was still the predominant feature and what was grabbing your attention, to the moment when suddenly it became art, not because of the video, but through the video, if I'm explaining it right, which was with Bill Viola, is his name. He was, I think we would all agree, the first artist to use video in such a way that that transcended the medium. And I'm sure that we'll get to that point with AI as well.
And so far, with its current condition, I find that it's an enhanced experience for art that I want to experience alone, but it doesn't compare to experiences that I want to share with others, which is ironic because it would connect you theoretically to people all over the world to enjoy that art together. And I feel a great disconnect due to the fact that that's not how I connect with people. The technology doesn't work well enough for that. But when it comes to, say, for example, seeing a painting, if I was going to look at a painting, I would like to look at a painting in that environment because it's closer to me. It's at my house. I can look at any painting. I can just seeing a painting. It's the ultimate environment. But going to the museum isn't so I can see a painting. Going to the museum is to be exposed to things I might not have seen before, to see things in between, and also because each museum that we've gone to has its own history, has its own. The buildings themselves are a component of the experience.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I guess it also boils down to the quality of reproduction in the VR.
That's right. Well, VR reproduction as of this year has gotten beyond what the human eye can see. So
okay.
Yeah, but what you're missing, not missing, but it's a transformation that we're living through that I'm very curious to see what happens. But it's the tactile, the sensorial, that is missing when you get into technology.
In some ways, it can be more tactile because of your ability to move it and manipulate it more. For example, in a virtual gallery, you can touch all the pieces. You can get other information.
Yeah, but you're not gonna get. Are you gonna actually get the sensations as if you
eventually over time? Yes, I'm saying it's a clumsy.
Yeah, but it's going to be simulacra. Anyway,
that's right. But,
I mean, if I shake your hand in our alternate,
alternate reality,
even if the machine can make it so that it feels,
that's right.
It's still simulacrum.
But isn't it all a simulacrum anyway? Like even if we shake hands, they don't really touch. It's just an impact of molecules one to the other. But
of my molecules and yours speaking to each other.
I don't know. I think that a lot of art in museums is even reproductions already because they keep the original art locked away, and then they show a reproduction.
Well, very few.
Very few.
Yeah.
very valuable ones, I guess,
Yeah.
or the ones that were already attempted.
more normal, or they're,
Yeah, they're
behind glass.
Yeah.
But no, it's going to be really interesting. We live in a really interesting moment in that sense.
I feel that I want to finish that point, if I might, though, just to say, I want to add that the place then I feel for museums is very poignantly, in my opinion, my uneducated opinion, is the point of bringing people together. And that's where I feel like the technology of VR was supposed to, it's what all communication technology is supposed to do, is bring people together, but it doesn't do it very well because the people who do it manipulate it. And the business of it messes it up. But with art and museums, the business of museums is bringing together people, in my opinion, who care about art, which is culture and arts, in a way that I agree cannot ever be in a virtual or a simulated second world until there's a whole second world. Unless you're going to port everything over there, how can that be there? Bringing people together has to be something that you can smell, something tangible, something.
Yes. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, the way we define it is we're there for the artists, and ideas of our time.
And you do so without bias, because when I go to an art show in a VR headset, I've got layers of bias pre-filtering what I have. I bought a headset from a company who's deciding certain things. I'm entering through a web page, basically a fancy one, but there's still websites that is being curated by somebody who's not curated the way you're curating it. You're not curating experiences in order to sell, advertising space. You're curating these for the benefit of the city, and that's what I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about. How do you see this progressing how do you see this growing in Jacksonville? This role, not just within MOCA, but how is it impacting other businesses? This idea of really curating something without this bias, something that's really for people and not just a very agenda-oriented platform.
Curating art, or
MOCA's agenda is really the most humanitarian agenda, because it's not the same as, it's really something that's for
really
public good.
Yeah, really, it's about non-profits. Non-profits and governments in an ideal world, right? It's for the benefit of the public good.
And even as our government becomes progressively polarized, and we don't need to get into that, but how do you at MOCA focus on maintaining this point of bringing people together and being this common point where the money still has to come from the government, who still has to have all these other fundamental issues, and you serve people who are still dealing with all of these, and yet you become that nexus? How do you see that role progressing?
Well, right now we live in a very polarized world, so which we all know. So it's difficult times right now, but we've weathered those before. So I think, like we said earlier, I think Jacksonville is in a great place. We're growing. Mosh is building a new building on the river that's going to be spectacular.
And MOCA is growing too?
Yes, we are actually growing. We are way past our pre-pandemic figures.
That's great.
In terms of engagement, and inclusion.
That's what I'm kind of asking about. Yeah, that's what I presume. I guess I didn't want to ask quite so bluntly about numbers, but that's what I'm hoping to.
Yeah,
is that people are finding this.
Yeah, it's a great moment for Jacksonville, I think, in that sense too.
Just because we're just have a few
Something you want to
Mr.
cover before we wrap up?
Well, I just thought, like, what are there for the rest of the year? It's an important year for MOCA.
Yes.
Yeah. What other things you want to highlight? Yeah. So
Yeah,
the
so-
exhibition's already open, the atrium and the.
Yes, so for the first half, we have in the galleries Walk on the Wild Side, which is the 70s New York, through the collection of this incredible Jacksonvillian Norman Fisher, who was from Jacksonville but landed in smack in the middle of New York 70s art scene and fashion scene and everything else. And it's a fun exhibit that covers both floors. And then,
And that's going to be through the year.
no, through June.
Okay. So first half.
The first half. And then in the galleries we'll have I'm pretty excited about it. It's a exhibition based on a collection of a collector from the LA area who's collected what is known as outsider art, but it's in general marginalized artists, whether it was because of their race, like African American artists in the South, or condition, or gender, or so it's
And it's his personal collection. He's gone
Yes.
and found all of these art pieces. And
yeah, he's been collecting for years, and I've known him since I came to New Orleans. So we're making a selection, and I was interested to present this collection now to get us thinking of what does art mean in the 21st century.
That outsider art.
Yes,
Yeah.
to shake up our understandings
I like
and.
that.
The art market is one thing, but art for the rest of us, what does it mean? So that's what that exhibition is, and I thought that was a good exhibition to have for the 100th.
Yeah, and I feel like it's also so in so coherent was the texture of Jacksonville, like, population.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like also so diverse, so diverse
and so meta. It's an exhibition of an exhibition.
so that will be from June onward.
Yes, to the
In
end
the
of the
galleries.
year, and then of course in the atrium, like we said before, we'll have the
The Mexican artist from Toronto.
yes.
I'm excited about that,
Yeah.
especially since it's in the immersive one.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
going to be
can you
really
remind us
exciting.
his name?
Rafael Lozano Hemmer.
Rafael Lozano.
Lozano Hemmer.
Okay, I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
checking that out.
You're going to love it.
Okay.
So,
Any special events? I know you just had your gala.
no, we had our big celebration of beginning the year, but the gala is April 6th.
Okay,
April 6th,
because I
So
got
everyone can get tickets,
I
join
got
the
an
party.
email. and when we saw the part, I thought it was like more.
We thought we missed the gala.
No.
We saw a bunch of people in nice clothes pulling up. We're like, oh
but
my
it was
gosh, we missed
all
the gala.
themed, right? Duval
Well, we'll
Rouge.
celebrate, exactly. We're celebrating throughout the year. So there's there's something for everyone. There's a community block party. We're taking over the
See,
city.
none of that's in VR.
When is
Exactly.
that?
Go on our website,
Okay, what's the website?
MOCA Jax
.org.
UNF.edu.
Okay.
But even if you just put in
It's all
MOCA
that?
Jax,
Okay. It takes all that? I was like, that had to be a short
just put in MOCA Jax.
Okay.
And of course, and Facebook and Instagram and all that.
Okay,
It's MOCA
okay.
Jax. And there you'll get, so that I don't say
There'll
the
be a
name
link.
wrong.
There'll be
Okay.
a link underneath
Yeah.
my knee.
Yeah. Okay. That's exciting. So there's celebrations through the year.
Yes. Yeah.
We should. We should.
We should have celebrated.
You absolutely have to
celebrate.
come and celebrate.
No. We definitely would. I would just. I was thinking with what format of celebrations? There's
Yes.
so diverse.
Yeah.
She's already making concrete plans.
Me, no.
No.
And of course, most of the celebration, like last weekend, it was we have a teen art council. So it's teens that do different activities, art-related activities throughout the year, and they are so fun, and they have their own little mini gala that they staged last week, and they did it 70s. So they played 70s Velvet Underground and all kinds of really cool music, and they all dressed in 70s and had disco balls.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
But it was only for teens.
Only for teens.
Yeah.
We will have our grown-up gala.
We're going to have to try to have as much fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's a significant number. 100 years of.
It's amazing. Yeah, to think of. It started with these 4 women, power women. They had all studied art nationally at the Art Institute of Chicago and in New York, and they got together and they said, "Hey, I mean, to have a real city, we need art, we need education," and from there it went to MOCA.
We need a nice place for our husbands to take us.
Yes.
Well, Ylva, thank you so much for coming again.
My pleasure.
Yes, I know we know each other closely, but I always enjoy this time on the episode because it feels like it gives us a little bit more clean period of time where we can just be uninterrupted and concentrate and dive in a little bit deeper into very interesting and relevant subjects.
Yeah, I learn a lot from even my closest friends that I know. I still learn a lot when we go into, an hour into, what you're doing currently and what brought you to this point. It's really enlightening for me, and it's enjoyable for me as well to have that deeper knowledge of you, because I do really appreciate what you've brought to the city, and I think arts and culture are they make everything worth doing. You can do a lot of things, but
you can touch the why.
Yeah. What makes it, I feel like, have meaning is this connection and this ideation and the way in which we think about it as a group, as a people. So I appreciate you.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
And thank you both for having me on.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to tomorrow's special visit to MOCA. So yes, everyone, Project Atrium, before it form shifts in June. Go check it out.
Yeah, form shift is going to be the new thing. That's right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Lots of form shifting going on at MOCA.
Yeah.
Yes, and a lot of celebratory events. So go check out. We'll leave the link in the description
link
for the
below.
website. Yeah, but as
MOCA Jackson.
Ylva said, Google MOCA Jackson. You'll get everything you need.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in today.
Bye.
See you next week. Who's with us next week?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
I think Soma, maybe.
Oh, Soma from Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Oh, he's from Florida, actually, but he's in Amsterdam. He makes weed. So, all right, so we'll talk to him. Thanks.
Bye.
See you next week.
Bye. That sounds really cool.